TradeMBI.com. This is John. This report is for, the 2nd of November. Well, we can see that we started here with the slight dip of magenta, still above 33. So how much dip you're going to get from that? Probably not a whole lot. We're in continuation mode of orange here on the DOC, caught between cyan and the red DOC. Red DOC at this particular stage, of course, is the beginning of the day, so you really can't take too much into it. We'll obviously get our notes from the 50K and that, but a little bit of softness and coming off the runs that we had. This is just a fill of that, literally 50% move back into the previous candle. We would expect around the 4th is when the new fund money comes in, and also, you have your liberation of lockups and that for stock purchases. So we'll see how fearful, really, corporations are in wanting to hold on to cash given the uncertainty of things. Because as long as the economy doesn't look like it's teetering in a super negative way, the Fed isn't going to stop because they've already told everyone that they're okay with a moderate rise in unemployment, and that their expectation will happen. So as things are right now, they're going to continue the course, which is going to have a heavier weight on the market in general. From an NQ standpoint, you can see everything's pretty much identical. I have to move a little bit because my camera is literally right in the way of my MBI readings. I had to move it over just slightly. From an oil standpoint, now we're creeping back up a little bit, and if supply remains tight and/or this expected cold spell that may be coming into Europe and stuff starts to take hold, we could see a dramatic jump in that. Your ability to continue to release from the strategic petroleum reserve is not going to really have much of an impact because OPEC has already signaled that they're going to tighten relative to it. So you're just throwing good money after nothing, really. Euro softening up a bit because that realization is that, again, you're going to need to get more dollars, and where are you going to get them? There's only one place. That means that people want fewer euros. Fewer euros desired is just a decrease. Now, obviously, the euro is still used, so there's that factor that keeps it somewhat. This is still elevated relative to what the EU economies are doing at this particular stage. And from a TLT standpoint, we've had this nice little bump up right into that 96 range. I still would expect it to come back down a bit more as a reflection that the Fed is still going to keep rates on the higher end of things. And some of this move, though, is certainly going to draw attention because people will go for the yield of guaranteed treasury over the uncertainty in certain market conditions. And that's going to be an interesting one to start to see playing out. And that's why I would keep an eye on that TLT relative to that, because that would be a drain if companies want to remain in cash and they'll just take short-term notes in that and/or hold on to the cash, and that has multiple effects. And that's where you can look at capital spending and some of those things from companies being drawn back a bit, and that is where the ripple effect takes place. 4, 5, 6 months from now is when it really starts to have its impact. Gold pushing back up just a little bit. You can see we moved the magenta back over there with a nice solid dip and almost have that orange below red. That would be a new buy setup. That would be reflective of the higher oil. And I think the oil and gold should run pretty tandem. And if there's a bifurcation or deviation in there, that would signal some other type of intervention there. Bitcoin just kind of holding at this plateau. We've got falling 100% line. It should pull price up, and if it doesn't, then we're going to have a little weakening stage, I would guess, within that. We're below the 33. Magenta is below yellow, but we don't have a turnaround yet from a short activity on the white to indicate it. We're seeing the DOC right there with the cyan popping, so that could be enough to give it a little bit of weakness going forward in there, and ETH, which has been a little bit stronger, same situation with the falling 100%. And it just shows the relative compression that's taking place within this basing. And I think that really sets you up for an explosive move. Should there be a desire to push into it, something macro happening with Ukraine or Russia or anything like that, and you definitely could see some excitement. Of course, we just saw a little bit of that with North Korea, South Korea situation stuff. So we'll keep an eye on that. There's the fade off from positive extremes there, filled that back in the other day, and then pretty much have just traded sideways. We've had some decent moves up to 38%, but the Power Mo 2 TA bought midway into that 23%, which I think is always a comfortable spot to get a fill in there. That way you've got room for movement like that, but not particularly great from a FBI reading, at least from a long standpoint at this particular stage. Is sort of medium neutral. Intraday, you can see where they're at right now. We've had a little pop, and it's filled back in right at the exact same algo. It's just clockwork. They're pretty fantastic with that. We've now supported on it multiple times for breakouts within the last couple of days. So clearly, an accumulation is taking place along that line, and they're just allowing it to fade back. Intraday, you can see we had some nice run up in the pre-market from it, created the positive extremes. Those were the exact same algos, no need to touch them. And then sell signals came in, and that was just beautiful, and returned all the way fully to that previous unfilled algo area from a few days back. And that's where we based off. So it was a pretty simple day, pretty light. I would expect that to start picking up, though, once that new fund money comes in, because that will generate either excitement to the long side or disappointment, which will also then create added bonus at this particular stage. You get midterm buyers really are where to look, and the DOC red. And if those continue to fade, particularly on the 50K and that, then I think it's going to be indicative of a soft period. And that will be interesting because it could accelerate as the election nears. We're getting very close to that. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty with regard to that setup. And then should things change, then, well, we've got a lot of options. As we get closer to the election, we can talk about those setups. As always, though, look for me on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk again later.